Hello and welcome to Table for One, Brent Luthold. So great to see you with your high-tech setup there. We're just hanging out at our dining room tables. Anyone could walk by in the background. You're the professional of the three of us here. Great to have you here. You picked a really fantastic film that came out this year, which Alonso had seen, which I had not seen prior to this, and that is Panah Panahi's Hit the Road. Brent, will you tell us about it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a movie that came out at I think it premiered at Cannes last year, and this is the debut film from Panah Panahi, who he's the son of Jafar Panahi, who's a very acclaimed Iranian director, and this is sort of basically a road trip movie. It's about a family of four and a dog that they pick up as well. And they're kind of bits and pieces of kind of where they're going and kind of what they're kind of striving towards that are kind of scattered throughout the movie, but it's in the classic kind of road trip thing. It's like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So most of this movie is them kind of traveling along, and we kind of get a glimpse into their lives and kind of how they connect with each other. And I think generally about as much of a description as I should probably say. I don't know.
That's
Is there
good.
anything else?
Well, you know what? This is for you, so you can spoil away all you like or not. So Thank you for your restraint. So of all the movies in all the world, why did you pick this one for us today?
This is one of my favorite movies of the year. I think when it certainly has had critical appreciation. I think when I think I saw this in July or something like that. It had hit rental around there sometime in the summer, and it probably had a very limited theatrical release. It didn't play here. I live in Fort Wayne, so we have an art house that I think was still, anyway, at that point they weren't playing it. So I feel like kind of now at the end of the year when critics are kind of thinking about awards and lists and that sort of thing, it's definitely one, or even people that aren't critics, just people who want to see a good movie, to kind of look back on, because I think it's a really great film, and I was surprised by it. I hadn't seen a trailer or anything. I kind of just went for it, and I was pretty surprised. Sadly, I haven't seen any of Jafar Panahi's, any of his movies. I know between Taxi and This Is Not a Film, and there's plenty of great ones that I'm sure I haven't seen yet. So I figured this was like his debut. Really Three Faces, yeah. So there's like plenty that I'd love to dig into there with Iranian cinema. So this was one, like being a debut, that I was like, well, this is a good starting place. So hopefully people will find that too, that maybe people who aren't used to seeing foreign films. I think this is really pretty accessible.
Yeah, Alonso, this is on your best of the year so far list. We did a little video halfway through. So why is this one of your favorites of the year so far?
Well, I just think, I mean, for a debut feature especially, this movie is such a knockout in terms of the economy of storytelling and what Panah Panahi is able to pull off in like these long takes and then also these very far off takes. You know, there's so many key scenes of the movie that happen with where the characters are just dots, but you still absolutely know what's going on and why it's important. But then you also get like that extended sequence with the bicyclist in the car, you know, that I just think is so fascinating. And then, you know, the way that the movie sort of slowly sneaks up on you of like, what's happening and why are these people doing what they're doing and what's behind all this? And, you know, even just like the brattiness of the kid, you know, you see so many like kind of cute, precocious, whatever kid actors in movies. And this kid is like, oh my God, it's a 6-year-old on a long car ride and you just want to throw him out the window. You know, I think there's just so much that this movie does right. And you know, I think that being the son of a great filmmaker does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to know what you're doing. But in this case, it did pay off.
Yeah, there's such tremendous confidence just from that very first shot, right? That long pan, like you start out on the little kid drawing on the cast, or playing the piano rather on the cast, and then like it just tilts up and it like looks around, then you see the older brother out in front of the windshield, and like they've told a whole story right there just in that one shot. And I was mesmerized. I'm like, how hard was that? Like, it looks really simple, but I think it probably was difficult to make all that line up and to have it all move just right. And I don't know. Just from that point on, you know that you are in the hands of somebody who is very confident and who also has a lot to say in a very spare and powerful way.
Any movie that can get away with name dropping Kubrick and then like delivering on that is like,
that shot, that kind of 360 shot, it sort of reminded me of that shot from Children of Men, where that's a much more action-packed scene, and there's a lot more, there's more going on outside the car. That's not the point of this scene necessarily, but it just reminded me of a lot of that car camera work. I'm just kind of like, it's so precise and clinical, but in ways where it's like everything is just sort of framed right. Like there's the scene right after that where the mom is burying the younger one's cell phone. And it's like it frames just them perfectly, but it still has the dad in there, and you get his facial expressions and like the way they use the focus on that too. It was just, everything was so precise, and I think especially for not only a debut, but also like a movie that's a lot of it takes place in a car. I love that. I feel like sometimes when they shoot scenes in cars, there's stuff that's not as, doesn't look as great, and it's just technical limitations. And it was neat to see in this one for sure.
I'm like, is he like smushed up like against the steering wheel? Like, how is he getting the shot?
I don't know if they have like a little mini drone or whatever. You had mentioned that shot too of him playing the piano on his father's leg cast that he had drawn on. That matches up with I think it's a Bach concerto that's playing. It's actually playing on the radio because the mom turns it off. Yep. So I thought that's like two neat things, that he's playing the notes and it matches up, and also that it's diegetic. It's not just the score, it's actually playing in the car too. So just like stuff like that. And this is just literally the first scene. So it's
you must have really noticed a lot of the audio stuff, since you were saying to me before we began that you have a degree in audio production. So what else did you notice along those lines that really impressed you?
I mean, there's a Schubert sonata as well that's playing throughout most of this. They kind of play different excerpts of it, and it's kind of like a melancholy sort of piano piece, I would say. And then I mean, just the music in this, I really love too. I don't know some of the songs they were singing. I would assume are like Iranian pop songs or rock songs, basically. But that's kind of the core of this movie, and like how they relate to each other. Like they're connecting through this. They're like singing all these like kind of goofy songs in some cases. Towards the end, the younger one breaks the fourth wall and is like singing lyrics, along with it.
I love that shot.
It's so cool. But then there's one. This isn't a spoiler.
Doesn't matter. It's your thing.
Yeah, there's not really any spoilers either. But regardless, there's a scene where they're all singing a song, and it's towards the end, and the mom is actually trying to keep herself from crying, and she slaps herself on the face, and she's smiling and singing, and it's like all three of these things together, like all at once. And so I really love the way just music played throughout the score, but then was also the music characters were kind of performing.
Yeah, Dave reviewed this for The Wrap. He talked about how it kind of fits into this sort of mini wave of kind of refugee cinema right now, about people kind of crossing borders and trying to figure out where they're going to wind up. And like, so if you look at movies like Flee or I Carry You With Me or I'm No Longer Here, there is a sense of like people being displaced for whatever reasons and being unsure about where they're going next and being sort of caught in this state of flux between homes, essentially. And that this movie, I think, really captures that so well, in that you don't fully know where they're coming from, you don't really know where he's going to, but you just know that like it's all kind of being done on the hush, and obviously they're getting away from something really bad, and in the hopes that wherever they're going to is going to be any better.
Right. Yeah. The fact that they don't have cell phones is, of course, crucial, but then the dad has sneaked his.
Right.
So the kid, by the way, Ryan Sarlach is the name of the kid. I thought he was super cute and not annoying.
Yeah.
I say that as the mom of a boy. I thought he was really mature beyond his years as far as like what all he has to navigate, like the stuff he has to say. He's clearly obviously really a little kid.
Yeah.
It has to convey that playfulness and that impetuousness as well. But then is surprisingly tender at times. You mentioned that scene that's like from really, really far away where you can just see him as little dots on the horizon, and the little boy is being, held back so that he can't hug his brother goodbye.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That's
so he's called upon to do a lot more than just be like this little imp.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that scene where it's kind of when they're in transition, or no, there's someone that is basically showing them kind of where to go, and he's like, basically follow me, and the younger one just jumps in the back of his van. It's like, that's kind of ill-advised. but they're
the
like,
mom
doesn't even
tell
bother.
me the psycho.
Yeah. That's the funny thing too, is again, like, just the way they related to each other. Like, they have like pet names for each other. Like, they were like, they just have all sorts of. That was one thing too, like with this movie, again, I don't know what actual words they're speaking. I can only rely on the subtitles, but like the subtitling is really good and funny. Like, they get something about the patois in this that's really like specific to these characters. I feel like, where it's not just like the, sometimes when you're watching a film, you feel like it's kind of the stiff version of what they're actually saying. And this feels very conversational. So I really
they're
like
not giving
that.
each other shit, but then you realize as it goes
Right.
along that like that's their defense mechanism.
Exactly.
Because they
Right.
don't want to talk about what they're really thinking about,
Right.
what's really weighing on them, what's really driving them literally. And so they're all talking about inane stuff about like music and Lance Armstrong and like anything but the reason that they have to go where they're going.
And the movie, in fact, never tells us what it is that the guy is fleeing or why. Like, that they keep they're pretty purposefully vague about what it is what crime he has committed or whatever, and it kind of doesn't matter,
Yeah.
I assume that he was like a college student intellectual and must have been doing some kind of, subversive, I don't know, rallying against the government for being oppressive. I just assumed it was something like that. And
but it could be drugs. It could be, he could be gay. I don't know. Like the movie really doesn't ever say. And the thing is, when you're dealing with a totalitarian regime, it doesn't matter what the reasons are. Like, a lot of people find themselves in those crosshairs for doing things that in other places would not be an issue.
Interesting too that there's this giant age gap between the older brother and the younger brother, and just no one ever talks about it. Like, we don't know what their backstories are as far as like, did they get married and pregnant really quickly, young, and then they wanted to have a child again later on? Like, it's just never addressed, and I don't know that it needs to be, because you spend so much time with them that you feel like you know them.
Yeah, he's probably college age, right? Like, he's probably in his early 20s, if I had to guess. Yeah.
I always think it's what they here they call the change of life baby, like my
Oops,
mom
baby.
Yeah, totally. Look, I'm the youngest of 7 and my oldest sister is 13 years older than me. So,
right.
There's like 5 siblings between us, but yes, like that happens sometimes. Like there's the planned kid, and then there's the, I guess we're doing this again kid.
I was impressed too, given that this is his first feature, how deftly he juggles tone, because it's so he covers this huge area as far as like physical humor and verbal humor, and it's a road trip movie, and so there are adventures, but then it's also deeply earnest and moving moments of, the mother and the son sitting side by side and just talking and smoking, the father and the son sitting side by side by the river and just talking. And it never feels jarring to go from, one tone to the next. So I was really impressed with how he pulled that off.
Yeah, there's there's a little bit of a sci-fi. I don't know if this was like a 2001 homage, but there's the scene where the father is in this sort of reflective suit, and he's kind of pointed out kind of like a star, and his son is, just kind of on his, chest or whatever, laying on him. And they're talking about Batman's whatever, like, fortune and how he spends his money. And it just zooms out, and the grass sort of fades away behind them, and it turns into stars. And it's just this sort of like, again, I don't know enough about Jafar Panahi and his relationship with Panahi. I don't know, but some of that makes me think that there might be parts of this that are autobiographical, and maybe the idea that like, these are kind of maybe this is the influence that maybe he got from his dad to, make movies, or just to be creative, or, just to pursue that sort of thing.
I mean, I haven't seen a ton of Jafar Panahi, but I've seen like 3 or 4. And I would say that that moment you're talking about is not necessarily something that he would do. I think it does kind of call back to the 2001 conversation that we're having in the movie. But yeah, Christy, you're right. I mean, I think the writing is so great in terms of the way that it wraps its arms around so many things and can change from scene to scene and what the tone is. And to have all of that plus the sort of craft going on here with these camera shots and with the editing and stuff, like this guy is just coming to the table just ready to tell stories in a really like mature and accomplished way.
Yeah, I agree. And also I think, as far as Jafar Panahi's films, with the ones I've seen, there's a great realism to them.
Yeah.
Right. They're very understated and not given to any kinds of like flights of magical realism at all. So this feels like maybe his own personal stamp on the medium. You know, you should see this is not a film. This is not a film. It's an incredible piece of like resilient, inspired, resourceful filmmaking.
And Three Faces is great too, because it is also kind of a road trip movie, and that Panahi is sort of playing himself and there's an actress kind of playing herself, and they're traveling to this small village where this woman who's an actress, based on her Instagram, they think that she might have committed suicide. And so they go to sort of figure out what's going on. And of course they're treated like outsiders because, they're showbiz people, so they might as well be whores. It's really good.
Okay, so then, Brent, what would your number be on a scale of 1 to 10? We do numbers here at Table for One, like we do on normal reviews. So what would you give Hit the Road?
I did like 4.5 out of 5. So I guess that would be like a 9 out of 10. I don't know what your numbers are, but if there's something that averages in there, anything between 9 and 10, this is, like I said, this will definitely be in my top 10 and will probably be in my top 5.
Great. Alonso, what would you say?
I gave this a 10. I think this is absolutely one of the best films of 2022. And I am thrilled to see what, Mr. Panahi the Younger has up his sleeve next.
Indeed. I will say 9 as well. I agree with you. So this was an excellent choice on your part. Go forth and discover more Iranian cinema and come back and let us know how it goes. And we thank you for spending time with us today.
Yes,
of
thanks,
course.
Brent.
Thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.